Hey everyone, I'm Ryan and you're watching 60 Cycle Hum, and in this video I'm going to talk about picks. Look at this gigantic pick I've got here. Isn't that awesome? And I've got a great big string too. It's a piece of PVC pipe. No big deal. But anyways, I wanted to talk about picks of various materials and shapes and sizes and designs. I've accumulated a lot of picks over the years that I honestly don't use very much because I just like to use like your classic Fender Heavy or like the Tortex equivalent. But I've got picks made out of stone, I got picks made out of bone, metal, wood, the various plastics, Tortex, celluloid, you know the whole drill. I've got picks with holes in them, I've got picks that don't have holes in them. So anyways, before we get into me playing around with those picks and seeing if there's any sound difference at all, I want to talk about my theories of how a pick interacts with the string, how it interacts with the tone of your playing, how it interacts with the tactile response that you, the guitarist, get to experience with the pick. So basically, I have in my head 3 moments in time that are like the basic moments that your pick interacts with your string. The very first one is the impact, when your string and your pick collide and you get a bit of a thump, a little bit of a click. You definitely get a tactile response through your fingers as the pick collides with your string. The second moment in a string and pick's life together is when the edge or the face of the pick slide against the string as you're pulling it across the string. This can be fairly dramatic for people who unfortunately hit way up on the pick. It could be very subtle for people like me who are very good at getting just the tip to interact with the string. That's how I like to play. But generally people are kind of like somewhere in there. So anyways, the pick slides across the string and you get a little bit of a sound out of that. There's a little bit of a dynamics to your playing as you slide across the string. And then the final moment, the third moment between a string and a pick is the release, where the pick and the string completely separate from each other. They say sayonara, and the string is left to vibrate by itself, no longer touching the pick in any sort of way. And this is the part that people are going to fight about, I'm sure, down in the comments. I think that the moment the pick leaves the string, it no longer matters what material the pick was made out of, what design it was, how thick it was, how heavy it was, things like that. I don't think it matters anymore once it leaves the string, because now the string is vibrating by itself. It's more about the amount of energy that you were able to put into the string with your playing style. I just don't think the material matters past that point. Maybe once I start playing with these picks, there will be a big sonic difference as the string rings out, but I don't imagine that that's true. So anyways, I think that the material and the design does matter on those first 2 steps. The impact, I think you get a big tactile response as the player with that initial impact that changes a lot with even the gauge, the weight of the pick in the same material can give you a different tactile response. So of course different materials can. Of course they can. And then the cut, the shape of the edge, the material of the pick matters as the pick slides across the string. I just don't think once you hit that release, the pick matters anymore. So let's get into it. I'm going to set up the rig here for you guys to see the picks as I play with them, and I'll discuss each pick as I go. See you in the next shot. All right, we're all set up. Let's get started here. I'm going to use this Fender Heavy pick as my control. This is what I've been using pretty much my whole life. I'm super familiar with this pick. I love just a little bit of flex that it gives me while still being really like firm and responsive. I'm super familiar with these. I know how to roll my thumb off the edge of it to get my pinch harmonics and whatnot. Typically, I stick with the same kinds of picks just because I am so familiar with them. And every time I pick up some sort of pick that is a different shape or a different material, I'm just like, I'm just going to stick with what I know. So we'll start off by comparing this Fender pick to one of my printed, like Tortex style print picks here. Very similar weight and feel and flex, just a different texture on them, really. Here is the Fender pick. I'm going to play a little lick on the B string for all of the picks. Here is the black 60 cycle hum pick. Detect any difference there. Let's move on to something crazy. Let's get nuts. Here is a Thalia wood pick, 1.4 millimeters. Here is that Fender pick again. And here is the Thalia wood pick. Immediately, I just blown my own ideas and theory out of the water because it sounds very different. It's the Thalia again. The Fender. Just a lot more like bright articulation from the Fender pick. The Thalia is kind of dark and muddy sounding and warm sounding. That was the Thalia, then switching to the Fender pick. Wow, yeah. I can admit when I'm wrong. It made the strings sound different after it released from the strings. That's very interesting. That was the Thalia. Here's the Fender. Now, whether it's better or not is subjective. I think I prefer the Fender pick in that scenario. It's brighter. It's more responsive. This wood pick here just feels kind of muddy and dark to me. Let's move on. Jeez, I was not expecting to prove myself wrong so quickly. Let's get into some of these gravity picks. I've got this JHS branded gravity pick that I picked up from, but that's going to happen a lot. From the first or second NAMM I went to, I grabbed way too many of these because they had them out in a fishbowl for free, and I was young and dumb and doing selfish things. So anyways, here is the gravity pick. I'm interested to hear if this is different than the Fender. Kind of twangy and bright. Here's the Fender. Back to the gravity. I'm not picking up a big difference here. That was the Fender. Here's the gravity. Back to the Fender. I mean, there might be a slight difference there. I feel like I'm getting a little bit more of like a twang off of the Fender. Now that I know that I'm wrong, I'm like listening really hard here. But yeah, I'm not getting quite as dramatic of a difference. Not a dramatic difference at all between this gravity and the Fender. Let's move on to one of these fancier gravities. Look at this guy here. It is a Sunrise Big Mini. And this is just a completely different shape than I'm used to, with a really nice sharp point. Back to the Fender. In this case, the Fender has a darker sound than the gravity pick. This one does bring out like a bit more of a bright twanginess. You know what? Maybe it really is those first two like steps of the pick interacting with the string. Maybe that sound of the impact and the slide against the string is more of what I'm hearing than the actual trail of the note. No, that trail from the Fender sounds a little bit warmer to my ear than the Gravity. I'm tripping out a little bit here, guys. This is a little wild. We've done two Gravities for the sake of moving forward. This one is kind of similar to the orange one. I'm not going to get into that, but I've got this really thin Gravity here, which is interesting. I don't remember ever playing with this. Here's the Fender. Similar experience as with the JHS branded one, where this one just, I'm not picking up an immediate difference. Maybe the Fender's a little darker, but it's not dramatic. Let's do stone picks now. I've got this pick here from Stone Age Guitar Picks that was sent to us, and I've got this stone pick from the Tone Mob podcast. A little bit of marketing there for them. We'll start out again with the Fender pick. The Stone Age pick here. A ton of slide sound on this. Like, you can really hear that. I don't like it. I'm getting a lot of clinking even when I'm strumming, and the pick, you can really hear that slide. I don't like that at all. We'll try out the Tone Mob one here. I know Blake is obviously a fan of this style pick. A little bit of clinkiness when you strum as it jumps from one string to the next and impacts the next string down the line. Not nearly as bad as that stone pick. I didn't like that. We'll go back to the Fender. The difference here, I don't think is as much as tone as it is a tactile difference. Like, these stone picks are just, they're really thick. You really feel it slide across the string. I don't know. I'm not a fan of that. Definitely not a fan of this big, thick stone pick here. The Tone Mob one is a little bit nicer because it has such a smooth edge. You don't feel the grind against the string quite as bad. But I'm not a fan of that clinkiness as it jumps from string to string. Speaking of clinkiness, let's get into some metal picks here. I've got a couple of them. I'll pull off this Fender stainless steel. Destroying the paper here as I go. So I've got the Fender stainless steel. I've got this ice pick. I think it's made out of brass pick. I've got this really thin, like, aluminum foil pick. Maybe it's some other material, but I've had this around forever. And then I've got this one that was given to me at the last NAMM, a T1. It's got all kinds of crazy texturing and holes in it and stuff, and it's made out of metal. I don't know what metal. So we'll start off with the Fender and then move through these metal picks here. Fender pick. We'll start with the ice pick, because why not? actually feels fairly normal. No excessive clinkiness or anything like that. It's just very heavy feeling. It's very firm. There's no flex to that at all. Let's try out this little foily bendy guy I have here. Not bad. A little bit of like a sharp clinkiness to the edge of it. I'm not picking up huge like sound differences between these two metal picks and the Fender. Here's the Fender. Yeah, very similar. Here's the ice pick. It's a little bit darker to my ear here in the room. Now this thin foil one, very similar in sound to the Fender. The ice pick, a little bit darker, interestingly. That was the Fender just there. Interesting. All right, let's check out this Fender stainless steel guy here. It has a little bit of a flex to it. Maybe that's what this is. The thin one is stainless steel, I think, because it feels similar to this, and it's got a similar metallic look. It doesn't sound the same. This thing has got, well, it's got these ridges on it. It's got these like textured ridges. I feel like those are interacting with the string a bit. Definitely getting a big like textured whoosh on the edges of the playing as I'm going. Here's back to the Fender Tortoise celluloid looking pick. Bad playing there. Yeah, there's like a bright whoosh on that slide there across the string that I'm not fond of. It works. It doesn't sound like crazy metallic or anything like that. I just don't like that little sweep sound. All right, now on to this T1 pick here. I have no idea what to expect from this. Sounds bright. Go back to the Fender here. A little bit of a clinky, like textured sweep feeling to it that I'm not fond of. I mean, a lot of this is so subjective, like I'm probably just comparing it to like not the feel that I'm used to with the standard Fender pick. So yeah, it's interesting that all these metal picks have kind of a different thing going on. The ice pick was a little bit darker than a standard Fender pick. This little stainless steel thing was kind of the same. The T1, a little bit clinky. Not a fan of the texture on the edge of there. And then this Fender stainless steel, I really didn't like that at all. It's clinky, and you really got a bit of texture across the stroke of the string. All right, what's next? Let's get into some of this bone stuff. And then we'll do the carbon picks. It's gonna be a long video, guys. Buckle up. I'm gonna do the bone and the rhino tusk, because they seem like they're pretty similar in composition. So, real bone there. And then the tusk. This feels super light. Interesting. I was expecting them to be more similar in feel, but this definitely feels like bone. And then this feels like a plastic. I wonder what it means by rhino tusk or hair. Like, is it compressed hair? Or a piece of tusk? Like, what is going... Is this illegal? Do I have something illegal here? What is this? All right, let's start out with the bone. It's a familiar material for guitarists. As far as our nuts on our guitars are often made out of bone, maybe it will interact with the strings in a tonefully significant way. Go back to the Fender. Not a big sonic difference there. Big feel difference though. Just with these thicker picks, maybe it's just I'm not used to them, but it's really hard to get the style of picking I'm used to doing with that thickness. It just slides across the string for an extra bit of time. I want a quick release off the edge of the pick. I want a thin pick that just lets go of the string instead of sliding it across the string on the thick edge there. Not a fan of these thicker things. I mean, it sounds fine. It's a little bit clicky between strings when you strum. If someone wanted to use this, I guess I'd get it. I'd understand. All right, here is the tusk or hair. I feel like this one has a sonic difference. Surprisingly not clicky, and doesn't have that textured kind of slide feel on the edge when you're playing. It's actually got pretty nice rounded edge here. Still feels a little unnatural when I'm doing some quick picks there. Back to the Fender. If there is a sonic difference, I think the Fender wins. I think it's a little bit brighter and a little bit fuller, where the Tusk pick here feels a little dead compared to the Fender, honestly, here in room. I have no idea if any of this is going to translate in post. All right, let's get into... I've got a Graphtech Tusk right here. We'll try that against the Fender. Feels very familiar. I don't know. I feel like the Fender is more awake sounding. A little twangier, a little brighter, a little bit more like what I'd call presence from the Fender. I mean, the Graphtech feels fine. It's got a textured thing going on here. A little bit of grip for you. Some people might prefer that shape. Back to the Fender. But I feel like the sound of the Fender is just a little bit better somehow. It's so subtle. It's so subtle, though, that there is a difference, which is very interesting to me. All right, let's get into these carbon picks now. Got the Pickboy carbon and the Dunlop carbon. Let's start with the Pickboy. I've never heard of these before. I'm assuming they're made out of some sort of carbon-infused plastic because it's a little bit flexible. Doesn't smell like anything. Doesn't taste like anything. Go to the Fender. Interesting. The Fender sounds a little deader than the carbon does. That was the Fender. Back to the Pickboy. This feels all right to me. I kind of like this. If this was, it's got a little bit of a flex to it. It's got a sharp, thin edge on the tip. If this was a little bit bigger, as far as being the same size as the Fender pick. I could play with this and be comfortable with this. I like the sound of it too. It's a little bit more present without losing any kind of fullness. Here's the Fender pick. I don't know, there's a little bit of like a weird quackiness to the Fender now. Am I becoming a pick person? There's like a little bit of a quackiness to the Fender pick that I'm not getting from the Pick Boy. Man, I am cork sniffing now. This is ridiculous. Now I've got this tiny, tiny little Dunlop carbon. It is so small compared to the Fender. Get more picks here in this shot to make it more interesting. All right, let's see how they compare. Dunlop carbon here. This one feels a lot firmer than the Pick Boy, and it's so small. Again, more quackiness from the Fender. This thing is so small, I don't think I could ever get used to playing with this. But it sounds very nice. Both these carbon picks sound kind of good to me. I could see a lot of players getting excited about these just based on their sound. But, I mean, when it comes down to it, feel is the biggest issue for me. And the Fender style, the size and the weight of the pick, I just feel like I can't move on to something else, because this is what I'm used to playing with. This is the thing that feels right to me. All right, let's try out these one of these prime tones. Feels very heavy. And I've got, are these all Dunlop prime tones? There's 3 of them. All right, which one should I do? I think I'm going to do the one that's got the better print on it, just for the sake of video. All right. A little bit of a flex to it. It's very thick and heavy. This is a lot heavier than picks I use for sure. Here it goes. A strong, warm sound from that. Back to the prime tone. Fender. It's so subtle. It is so subtle, but there is a little bit of a difference there. It's a little bit warmer, a little bit fuller. It doesn't have the quack of the Fender pick. I can't believe I'm saying these things in a video. This is so cork sniffery. It's ridiculous. I've got 2 left here that I'll get into. I've got the Clayton. I'm just going to say, well, let me see if it says on the pick. Clayton Flex. I don't know what the guy wrote down on the paper. Clayton Flex. It's got a hole in the middle. Some kind of plastic material with a little... It flexes. It says it flexes, and it flexes. A little bit clicky compared to the Fender. To my ear, kind of indistinguishable from the Fender. If you're looking for something with a grip in the middle, this might be the pick for you. And then, speaking of grip, the last one, the most novelty of the picks, is the Swiss pick here. It looks like a piece of cheese. Obviously, this is to give you something to grip onto when you're playing. Who knows if it has any sonic qualities to it all. It's a little bit firm. It's not really flexy at all. Back to the Fender. Not a big sonic difference there. Fender. Fender's a little bit brighter. There's definitely a lot of grip to this pick. If you're someone who's dropping your pick all the time, maybe this is worth it to you. If you like something really heavy with not much flex to it at all, Swiss pick, sure, why not? Try one out, I guess. I'm really surprised to be walking away from this having disproven myself. We'll see what it all sounds like in post. I'm sure people are going to argue about which picks have which sonic qualities when they're listening to the recording. In room, there were picks that had clear sonic differences, but for the most part, it's so subtle across most of these picks that I feel like it's not even really worth fighting over. There was a huge difference between like the wood pick and a regular Fender pick. And there might be huger differences between, say, like a stone pick and the wood pick versus, you know, like a gravity pick or something like that. I think this little gravity one was the first one that really impressed me. And it's like, oh, maybe I should become a pick cork sniffer and venture out, because this one felt like it brought a little bit extra to the tone of my playing. So I might have to experiment with that some more. Didn't like the stone picks. I feel like the metal picks are unnecessary, too detrimental. I thought that the sound of this Fender stainless steel guy was detrimental to my playing. The rest were like, whatever. I don't know. I'm going to explore this gravity pick a little bit more, and the other ones like it. And see how I feel about it. But man, interesting experiment. Interesting video, I think. I'm sorry it was so long, but that's what happens when you play with like 50 or so picks all at once. Well, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, dislike, leave me rude, nasty comments. Support us on Patreon so I can keep diapers on my baby and stay grounded. Bye, everybody.